What is going on, everyone? This is JABO, your pit stop quick one-stop shop for all things NASCAR and other sports that are just a bit outside. I'm your host, Brendan Bryan, and let's get started. It was upsets galore this past weekend from football, baseball, and NASCAR, but we will start it off at Talladega with the truck race. The Truck Series took on Talladega Superspeedway on Friday evening. The race essentially had two main contenders all day long, those being the 19 of Christian Eckes and the 9 of Grant Enfinger. The race was competitive but not wrecky to begin with, as the 42 of Matt Mills won Stage 1, the first of his career, and Grant Enfinger won Stage 2, collecting 19 vital stage points. The 2 of Nick Sanchez looked very competitive towards the middle portion of the race, but spun by himself on the inside lane, only to make his way back to the front to be spun by Christian Eckes. During the last green flag run of the race, Enfinger led Eckes, and the latter kept aggressively pushing the 9, looking for a way around. However, that opportunity never came, as the cars behind Eckes jumped out of line to get to the lead on the final lap, which led to a crash coming to the checkers where Enfinger would snatch the win and advance to his third Final Four appearance. I don't care what others think. I have his autograph on the wall adjacent to me. I may be biased, but he is owed a gosh darn title at this point. Third time is a charm. Gosh darn it, yes, he's gonna do it. With his win, the playoff standings become a little more cluttered, as Eckes and Corey Heim both sit at 30 and 29 points ahead of the cut line, and Ty Majeski just sits 5 above Rajah Caruth. Nick Sanchez, Taylor Gray, and Tyler Ankrum are all double digits below the cut line and will have a lot of work to do at Homestead in a couple of weeks. Also, Norm Benning was in this race. I just thought I should mention that. He's 72, by the way, and finished 21st, while Timmy Hill failed to qualify. What a strange world we live in. The NASCAR Xfinity Series was definitely a wild one, which saw a lot of comers and goers, but ultimately an upset winner. Stage 1 was won by the 81 of Chandler Smith, and Stage 2 by the usual suspect, the 21 of Austin Hill. However, in Stage 3, a late caution caused by a stack-up in the trioval took out big names such as the 97 of Shane Van Gisbergen and Austin Hill. Shortly after, another large wreck took out even more playoff cars, including the 2 of Jesse Love, the 00 of Cole Custer, the 7 of Justin Allgaier, and the 48 of Parker Kligerman. This led to a green-white checker finish, which saw the 12-seeded playoff driver, the 8 of Sammy Smith, battle Chandler Smith and the 98 of Riley Herbst, but would hold off each contender to win his first race of the season and the second of his career to advance to the round of 8. Herbst was not happy with Chandler Smith after the race, saying he cost him the race as he was trying to push him past the 8 car to battle the win between the two of them. However, footage shows that Herbst definitely was not trying to push Smith as he tried to cut to his inside on the back straightaway during the final lap. Also following the race, playoff driver Sam Mayer was disqualified after it was found that the rear end of his car was way too low. The team Mayer drives for, Junior Motorsports, is appealing the penalty. If they win, Mayer will be above the cut line entering the transfer race next week. Otherwise, he will be 13 points below, looking for points. Chandler Smith clinched a spot in the round of 8 on points, while Custer, Hill, Creed, Love, and Riley Herbst are all over 20 points above the cut line, while the 16 of A.J. Allmendinger only remains 7 ahead of the 7 car, Justin Allgaier, who is the first below the cut line. Gisbergen, Mayer, and Kligerman are all within 16 points at the cut line, meaning that one thing goes wrong for a driver above the cut line, it will be a dogfight for the transfer position at the Roval. Finally, taking a look at the Sunday Cup race at Talladega, it was an all-time classic from start to finish. The event saw some of the most impressive superspeedway racing I have ever seen. The field was constantly 2, 3, and even 4 wide. That's right, 4 wide for dozens of laps. I don't know how they did it without wrecking. I know fuel conservation was going on during the 4 wide racing, but doing that at 195 miles per hour is insane. And what's even more insane is that nobody wrecked from that. Not at all. It was also something else to watch as when the drivers started to pick up the pace and would go seconds faster than they were just previously saving fuel, which built up the intensity and just amplified the race as a whole. Stage 1 was essentially clean except for the 99 of Daniel Suarez, a playoff driver, who had to serve an early pass-through penalty for unapproved adjustments before the race. He would be lapped by the field early on and would try to fit in a hole that just was definitely not there and would wreck himself and the 78 of BJ McLeod to boot. However, both would be able to continue the race, but not to much success. Non-playoff driver, the 17 of Chris Buescher, would win Stage 1, while the Penske cars looked great in Stage 2. The 2 of Austin Cindric, needing a good point today, would win Stage 2, but his teammate Ryan Blaney would be less fortunate as he would spin after a bad push in the tri-oval from the 48 of Alex Bowman, sent him spinning into the outside wall, collecting last week's winner, Ross Chastain. Blaney was not happy with Alex Bowman, to say the least, after the incident, saying words I cannot repeat here on the podcast. Following Stage 2, a long 57-lap green flag run would ensue, seeing differing strategies. At the end, however, the usual suspects were out in front, like Cindric, Keselowski, Logano, and Elliott. However, while lapping the 38 car of Todd Gilliland, who was previously serving a penalty for speeding on pit road, the 6 of Brad Keselowski would make a bad push to Austin Cindric, who would spin and collect only 28 cars in the accident. And you don't need to Google it because that is the largest crash in NASCAR Cup Series history. Essentially the whole field. Surprisingly, most of these cars were able to motor it up and keep going, while Logano and Cindric were not so lucky and would not finish the event. The final stretch of this race was a green-white checkered. The 8 of Kyle Busch and the 16 of Shane Van Gisbergen both tried to form a third line to no avail. Therefore, the race came down to an intense two-wide battle between Keselowski and the 47 of Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who avoided the carnage and was being pushed on the outside lane by the 24 of William Byron. Keselowski, with a push from the 5 of Kyle Larson, cleared Stenhouse in turn 3 on the final lap, but did not attempt to blot the 47 at all, which allowed he and Byron to roar back on the outside in the final turn. Byron jumped to the high side coming off of the tri-oval, while Stenhouse and Keselowski were neck and neck crossing the finish line. For Stenhouse to win the race by, get this, 6/1000ths of a second. That's right, the third photo finish of the year in the Cup Series, and it is actually the third closest of the bunch, with 1/1000th at Kansas earlier this year and 3/1000ths at Atlanta. This is a timely win for Stenhouse, who is losing his main sponsor, Kroger, to, funny enough, Brad Keselowski's team, RFK Racing, next year. The underdog missed the playoffs this year, but it is his fourth win, all coming on super speedways, and it is his first season with back-to-back wins, with his last win being the 2023 Daytona 500. Stenhouse would celebrate by climbing the fence and the flag stand. William Byron, who would finish third in the race, also had reason to celebrate as he clinched a round of 8 berth on points. Both the 20 of Christopher Bell and the 5 of Kyle Larson are essentially close to clinching, as they are 57 and 52 points above the cut line. The 11 of Denny Hamlin scored no stage points today, but would end up finishing 10th, and now sits 30 points above the cut line, while Bone and Blaney both sit 26 and 25 respectively. Reddick gained 18 points on the cut line today to be 14 ahead entering the Roval, while the 9 of Chase Elliott sits in the final transfer spot at 13 ahead of Joey Logano. However, when looking at those above and below the cut line, which include the aforementioned Logano, Cindric, Suarez, and Briscoe, all of them are in must-win situations next week entering the Roval. Logano may be able to point his way win if something goes wrong for someone above, but it's a long shot. The board is set for the round of 12 transfer race at the Roval. In other recent news from NASCAR, in week 2 of the Haley LaJoie swap, Haley comes out on top with a 7th place finish to LaJoie's 18th. Both cars look competitive and led laps during the race. The score is now all tied at 1 apiece. The only major news coming out about the NASCAR federal antitrust lawsuit came from this weekend's broadcast of the race, where lead announcer Lee Diffie stated that NASCAR has 60 days to respond to the lawsuit. When counted out, that 60-day date is for Sunday, December 1st, 2024, which is exactly 3 weeks after the championship race at Phoenix. Hopefully this means that with the allotted time, NASCAR and the plaintiffs can resolve the lawsuit and not have it interfere with any upcoming races. I still don't think this case goes to trial, but now there is a speculative date for when a response or resolution is needed. NASCAR, at the time of this recording, has yet to publicly address the lawsuit. Looking ahead to this weekend, the trucks take a break while the Cup and Xfinity Series take on a pivotal cutoff race at the Roval. This will be the final race in the round of 12 for the Xfinity Series. With Sam Mayer's penalty, everyone below the cut line does have a realistic shot of pointing their way into the next round if things fall their way. However, up front, A.J. Allmendinger will look to keep his undefeated streak at the Roval alive, but will face his biggest opposition yet from his teammate Shane Van Gisbergen. This is also a cutoff race for the Cup Series round of 12, and it could be a doozy. Essentially, everyone below the cut line looks to win, while those above look to stay out of trouble and merely finish to advance to the round of 8. There are going to be some Hail Marys this weekend, so stay glued to the screen. Now taking a look at the rest of the sports world, Major League Baseball began their postseason last week with teams like the Diamondbacks and Mariners missing the big show by just the skin of their teeth. Meanwhile, the Braves, Baltimore Orioles, Brewers, and Astros were eliminated in the wildcard round. Underdog teams such as the Mets, Tigers, and Royals continue their World Series runs into the divisional round as they look to take on the best of the best this year. In the world of college football, the world burns, as 5 of the top 11 ranked teams and 7 total ranked teams lost this weekend. Miami staved off being the 8th ranked team to lose this past weekend by, again, dubious circumstances, and are fast-tracking their way to being last year's FSU team. Speaking of Florida State University, they are still nowhere to be seen as they lose again this week to ranked Clemson. The ranked teams to lose this week were 25 UNLV to Syracuse, number 22 Louisville to SMU, number 11 USC to Minnesota, number 10 Michigan to Washington, number 9 Missouri to the team I made fun of last week, number 25 Texas A&M, number 4 Tennessee to Arkansas, and last but not least, with what is probably the single biggest upset I or anyone else has ever witnessed, after beating the number 1 team the week prior and assuming that ranking, number 1 Alabama lost to unranked Vanderbilt. I have no words. It was like watching Divine Providence. But watching the fans take the goalpost and dumping into the river afterwards was awesome to see. I may have grown up in a Crimson household, but I just have to say go Commodores. I really hope they win out. Now watch them lose to Ball State in 2 weeks. Also, for all those who watch college football in Alabama, that means Jacksonville State was the only D1 football team from Alabama to win this past weekend to get their second win of the year. That's right, 1-2 against the currently winless powerhouse Kennesaw State. Alabama, Auburn, UAB, USA, and Troy all lost this past weekend. Unbelievable. Speaking of Troy, they lost again, as I mentioned, but by butt-whooping this time on Thursday night to visiting Texas State, who stomped the Trojans 38-17. The season is truly over. Time to root for chaos. That means after this weekend of college football, Texas reassumes the number 1 spot in the rankings, as they take on number 18 Oklahoma this weekend, while number 2 Ohio State plays number 3 Oregon, and number 9 Ole Miss battles number 13 LSU. Well, there you have it. Another week of racing and sports chaos in the bag. Hope you all enjoyed this episode of JABO. I'm your host, Brendan Bryan, and I will see you all again next time.